So number two is keeping your audience informed. Now, I mean, as a copywriter myself, this is one that I am very involved in, and it's everything. Like I'm working on a lot of brands at the moment that are cafes. I mean, even glass repair companies. And the biggest thing I'm telling them as a copywriter and a message marketer is making sure that you're keeping your audience informed, because people are looking to brands. And it's not like not like you're the only brand, but they look to brands to take a bit more of a proactive approach. And so with some of these, like restaurants, for example, I've been saying, put emails together and social media comms and all these kind of things in your wording where it says, we're reopening, these are the steps we're taking. Here's what we're doing differently to protect your safety and hygiene. But people are, I know that Australians, we can't wait to kick the door down at our cafe, right?
I must get my coffee.
Yeah, I went to my cafe recently and there was like a line of people going, let me in caffeine, right? But I think that brands need to be mindful that people are still a bit nervous, and so absolutely. Now's the time to be proactive and say, this is what we're doing. This is why your safety it matters to us. And like we talked about before, genuine, not like, we're washing our hands. It's like, what are you actually doing and how are you showing this to people? Someone to weigh in with communication to customers.
Yeah, look, I definitely think, as you say, Chris, I think it's about actually telling people what you're doing, telling your customers what you're doing, but it's being authentic.
Yes, big time.
Yeah, and you've got more freedom now in that authenticity. I mean, I think pre-COVID, everybody was like, no, we've got to stay within our narrow bounds. I think you've now got more of an opportunity to talk about what it is that your brand stands for. So as long as it's authentic and that you are backing it up with action. As well, I think one of the things that we did see a lot during COVID that I personally found after a while really switched off people because the amount of noise coming through was when brands kept repeating the same level of government advice, and they would give you an A4 list of exactly what the government put out 3 weeks ago, and now you've seen it 500 times.
Especially 3 weeks later.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you've got to remain current, and I think you've got to, if people are seeing from a lot of touch points what the government advice is, then you can simply say we're adhering to the government advice, but these are the other things we're doing.
Yes.
I like that.
With your messaging, if you look at it, it's always about adding value. So if you see what's going on there,
value. Sorry.
I mean, if you look at what Kristen was talking about, having all of the just repurposing or resending out the same stuff that everyone else is sending out. So what? You get that from other areas and other sources. That's not really helpful. It's interpreting that and then looking at how can your audience utilize that. What does it mean for them? And when we going through COVID, there's some great accountants that were sort of looking at what was going on, what are the latest changes, and talk about a time for relevance. I think everyone was leaning on their accountant over the past couple of months. And so the ones that were very proactive, putting out great information, if you found an accountant who wasn't being proactive, not following you up and sort of saying, hey, have you got,
just switched off, didn't it? Absolutely.
I guarantee you wouldn't be hanging around with them, not now. But the ones that you saw kind of constantly adding in this great information and telling you what that means for you and stuff, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of that. Like I work with a lot of clients that do, like real estate agents, for example, and they get that the interest rate comes out, and you see the agents that just reiterate the same thing, it gets ignored. It's the agents that then say, okay, this is what it means. This is what I'm predicting. Now it is an assumption because they're making their predictions based on their experience. But like you said, Mike, that's very poignant. Is that it's not just saying, here's something I saw that I'm copy pasting to you. It's here's the information and here's how you can use it. And here's why it's relevant to you. That relevancy and value in all of your communications to your customers must be there. It doesn't matter if it's now or before or after this COVID era.
Exactly. Well, like you said, we're just getting exhausted with getting the same emails over and over again. And I'm okay hearing from a brand if they're telling me how it's uniquely affecting them and how it affects me getting their service. That is a value add to me. And then if I find out that they're doing something because they care about me as a client and they want to talk to me about it uniquely, well, then that's working as well. But as soon as it's that general approach, it just completely loses me. And I think there's been a few times I've unsubscribed to, certain email lists that before I was really happy to get. But it's been so much COVID, update.
Same
And now
update,
I
same
want to start
update,
seeing,
yeah.
how are you innovating?
Yeah.
How are you pivoting?
Okay,
What-
1, 2, 3, all set it, right? Set it yet.
I think we've snapped, we've got the whole table now, haven't we?
Where are we going? What are you going to do? You've found these new clients. You've gone online. Are we staying online? Are we going back? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the brand. I want to know what you're doing and how it's going to affect our relationship. So again, I think it's all bringing it back to humanizing it and having the empathy around, what your clients are feeling or thinking towards your particular service or product, and making sure it's a unique message for them.
Yeah.
And I think for marketing agencies, which there will be a lot of people here that are part of marketing agencies or marketing teams, that's another good point, is our clients are actually businesses themselves.
Yeah.
And so we also need to take that lead as well, and guiding our business partners to say, this is how you can reach your customers at the end point. And these are the kind of things that you need to be telling them. So it's not just if you're a brand that speaks directly to a big audience, it could be that you're speaking to a type of a chain or a franchise or a business that needs to then communicate onwards, and they are looking for your guidance as well on how we communicate to their end customers. So it's all important, but communication is absolutely key right now. People
absolutely.
they're looking for you to give guidance. This is how we're going to do things.
I mean, that's definitely what you were doing the whole time, is putting out there. How do you, what messaging are you putting out there right now? And I know for video production, of course, all our live productions had to be canceled because of COVID restrictions. So it's important to guide my business customers on how else can we get your messaging out there? What else can we do to make sure you're relating and connecting with your audience, which ended up being a lot of animation and podcasts. But now things are changing. It's going back and we can do live production, and it's just keeping them informed. But again, it's that very unique messaging of how can we help you get your message out there?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you want to pick up on any of the questions?
Does anyone have any questions? How can we become better at listening to customers? That's a really, really good one. So for me personally, I am very actively engaged. I mean, I'm a slightly smaller agency, so for me, I'm actively engaged in a lot of my customer interaction. And so I'm always on the phone asking, and I've always got my ear to the ground on social media in terms of really listening to people. I have no hesitation in asking. And because I teach a lot of classes, and I teach a lot of classes at GA, and that's also a really good listening post for me. But I find that social media is a really good way to listen. There's also now on LinkedIn, if anyone's seen, there's a poll function.
Yeah.
And that's a really good function to sort of ask people and say, how can you listen, what do people want to know right now? How can we be of better service to you? Does anyone want to?
Well, I mean,
Wayne?
honestly, this is a better time than ever to be able to listen to your customers, because if your marketing's online, there's data.
Yeah.
You can check the data now. You can see what they're opening, how far they're watching a video, which podcasts are opening, which pages they're visiting. There's so much analytics now that we can follow, that we can really pinpoint, what are our customers looking at and what's working, and making sure that we're following up, it is listening to them by looking at the data.
Let me jump in before you do.
You're all wearing together.
I love it.
The only thing I would just add to this is, I think you've got two types of listening to your customers. You've got the direct, where you're actually having the conversations with your customers and you should be asking for the feedback. And then there's even right down to the polls, I would say, is direct customer feedback, where you're asking pointed questions, you're understanding how their businesses are going, and you're understanding how you can add value in this time. The other is indirect, which is the data. So you can see how people are responding to your digital platforms, to your social media. You can capture that data and you can use it to inform. And I think that really leads well.
Nice segue, well done. Yeah. I mean, that's the area that we particularly love. And when we look at it from an action aspect, within the digital space, you're right, Ariel, that you can track so much stuff now. And previously, we sort of look at marketing, you'd sort of do it. The client would sort of go, oh yeah, you guys are doing stuff. That's great. You know, I can see some stuff happening over there. That's kind of cool. Now it's like, no, hang on. Tell me what's going on. You know, every bit of content that I post or every ad that we do, you know, what's the result out of that? One, what's my return on investment? Is it doing something? Yeah, it's like, it's everyone's focus right now on every dollar and saying, is it getting a return for me?
Yeah.
But then also looking at, well, what's the level of engagement? What's the audience that we're kind of getting out there, or who we're getting out there to? And do they care about what we're doing?
Yeah.
You know, or do we need to sort of start evolving our message, evolve what we do on, particularly in social media? Is this stuff really resonating with our audience?
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. Is I feel like marketers now is more important than ever, is not listening to the metrics. Like we've been drilling it into marketers for years about looking at your metrics and seeing what's working, what's not, and not knee-jerk reactions, but just looking at the data over time and saying, this isn't working. And having the courage to say, okay, our clients are clearly, they're unsubscribing, they're not listening, like they're not engaging in our message. And a lot of brands either ignore it or they do the knee jerk. And it's like, how do we listen to that medium?
Yeah.
Yeah,
points?
absolutely.
And so marketers must be watching data.
Yeah.
Must.
Yeah,
must.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
important.
And there's a lot of, you know, you've got to recognize there's a lot of noise out there.
Oh,
People-
yes.
So don't be surprised if you do get some unsubscribes, etc.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
you know that's just going to be natural. But I think as long as you have a very clear plan and a clear strategy and you're executing that, I think you'll do well.
And you're sticking to your brand identity.
Yeah.
Don't get
Yeah.
lost in everything happening right now and just say, I need to, you know, follow this train and be seen as this. You still need to be your brand through it.
Yeah.
And you can't lose, you can't lose that brand identity while getting this
Absolutely.
new marketing out there.
We'll take one more question. Is there one we can grab? What are the most efficient digital marketing platforms to get the greatest amount of conversion for a service-based SME? We're going through a point in omnichannel. I think we'll
Yeah.
address that one. So hold that one. Is there any other question? Otherwise, we'll move.
There was
there was one that was how do we acknowledge events and things that are happening during COVID. Like Kristen said before, my opinion is always like you said, be genuine about it. Like don't say nothing's happening.
Yeah, I think authenticity is key. You really have to be genuine about it, your brand, and you really have to recognize that how you express your response to things that are happening in the political environment or within the COVID environment has to reflect your brand.
Yeah.
So, do not, as we constantly be saying, knee jerk is wrong.
Yeah.
What you've really got to do is think through how you're going to respond and be genuine and authentic.
And a question, but people are probably thinking, why isn't knee jerk correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to, because I think that'll come up, is why are we so adamant against the knee jerk reaction?
Do you want to start? Or?
Oh, I should say that one.
I know that people will ask.
Yeah, because knee jerk usually is a response to an immediate situation that doesn't necessarily propagate itself forward.
Longer
So
term.
in simple terms, if you respond, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make the wrong decision. You're going to do more damage to your brand
It's
because you're
confusing.
actually
it
going
is
to
confusing.
confuse the customer, and you're going to step away from all the work that you've done in the past and what you're trying to do to go forward.
I mean, if you just think about that in terms of the COVID side of things, you know, when COVID first started to show up and we started all the businesses and we were all looking at how we react to it. And, you know, straight away I was getting emails from every possible business that I'd had contact with over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether I'd said anything to them for years. And all of a sudden I've got this email going, oh, I think we used you at one point, once upon a time. And it's all about what they're doing about COVID, which I don't really care about that business because I wasn't using them. Wasn't going to be using them anytime soon. So that really wasn't helpful. And so many businesses jumped on the same bandwagon, doing the same
and
thing. And you're like,
immediately-
all right, you know what? Delete, unsubscribe.
Yeah, that's the
unsubscribe.
danger there.
You know,
And without that, so there'd been no consistency leading up. There was
Yeah.
no consistency through because it was just drop in, drop out.
Yeah.
And then if you do knee jerk again and you've got no consistency, without consistency, you do not have trust for your brand.
Exactly.
Then people cannot engage with your brand because they don't trust it.
because they don't recognize it anymore.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. That consistency is so important. You need to trust and know who that brand is, their identity, and you lose that with these knee-jerk reactions that come out of
absolutely.
nowhere without any thought.
Yeah.
Mm.
Great. All right, we'll move on.